You're listening to the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
And welcome back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show. In studio, we got Ted Nelson. He's the chaplain over at Gulfside Healthcare Services. Coming up in just a moment. Before we do, we like to feature our real estate listings live on air and help our sellers profit more, sell faster by pitching their listings live on air. 1991 Orange Court in Dunedin, Florida. This is one of my favorite listings right now. Owners motivated. We just did a price reduction on it, and this is a beautiful home at 2881 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. Got a gorgeous kitchen that's been updated. Solar panels on the roof, of course, reducing the electric bill. Oversized and heated pool, screened-in patio, and a huge split floor plan. It's on a cul-de-sac road. Great opportunity to own real estate here at 1991 Orange Court in Dunedin, Florida, and that is beautiful Pinellas County. And you can see all of our real estate listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com. And a quick shout out to our friends at Discovery Golf Cars, longtime friends of the program. If you're thinking about getting a golf cart, they have lots of makes and models, the Easy Go, Star EV, Cushman. They have new and pre-owned, and they are multiple locations here, Tampa, Clearwater locations, online, discoverygolfcars.com. Make sure you let them know the real estate quarterback sent you. Take them up on those special offers and incentives just by mentioning that you're a fan of the Consumer Quarterback Show. All right, Ted Nelson, welcome back in, sir.
Hi, Brandon. It's an absolute pleasure to be back with you. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Tell us a little bit about your capacity as a chaplain for Gulfside Hospice.
Yes, absolutely. I've had the privilege and honor serving as a chaplain for just a little over 5.5 years now with Gulfside in Pasco County. And it is just the most deeply rewarding ministry that I've been a part of in my life. And it's an opportunity, particularly when dealing with end-of-life scenarios for families. When we reach that point that families are needing support the most and probably at their most vulnerable, that's an opportunity as a chaplain to step in and offer spiritual support. And I think one of the most beautiful things regarding hospice is they look at chaplaincy as interfaith, Brandon. So, I can certainly meet with a family with my Christian background, and then we can find commonality between our faiths. And it's just a beautiful thing, I think, to find what people truly value most in life and what might offer them that peace, perhaps, that they're seeking at that moment and at that time. So for families, to welcome you into their inner circle, that's just a precious gift, I think, to get to share in that time with them and be a support. Yeah, it really is big time. I mean, spiritual care and that end of life, that it's a very... Man, what a challenging time. It's a humbling time. And for families to bring you in, that's a big deal. Yes, it truly is. And I really do consider it a privilege, Brendan. And I tell families how just deeply rewarding it is to be with them and to care for their loved one. And I think one of the things that I so appreciate is honestly the depth of gratitude that families express, and just they are so truly appreciative to have the support and just the space to let themselves be vulnerable and to grieve and to just be able to understand better how they can be supported during that time. And how do you encourage families to honor their life and remember them at that time? How do you encourage that? Wonderful question. I think especially as we're just coming out of the holidays and into a new year, I think it's such a fragile, delicate time. And I reinforce with families and just invite them to keep memories alive and whatever it might be to keep a family tradition alive, especially during the holidays. Yeah. And so I think that even though the person may physically no longer be with us, the loss is felt and it's so significant, but that they live on in each of us and their memory goes on. And so if there were things that were meaningful and precious to the family, that they can maintain that. So if I can share personally for a moment, our family just experienced the loss of my grandmother the day following Christmas. We got to gather this past weekend to do a celebration of life. And so we encourage families to gather, have that time together. If it's meaningful to set a place at the table, to offer a space for that loved one, and just to try to embrace this new reality that we're now living, right? And so it's an opportunity. I really offer families every encouragement that I can to just maintain that sense of, gosh, togetherness that you once had. Continue to do things that were so special with your loved one.
And when you have that, sometimes the family member that just takes it really hard and they're just super emotional. Do you find it that you kind of remind them of, hey, look, they're in a better place now? I mean, does that give them some sense of calming at that point? Hey, they're in heaven now. They're in a better place. You're going to be reunited one day.
Yes, in my experience, that really does offer a comfort, and I think that is something that we can thankfully draw from, especially in those moments, in those times, and to say, look, I think based on the faith that we have, that we share, we know that we have that assurance we can look ahead,
right?
That there will be that time to be united again with our loved one. So that understanding our time is temporary here,
exactly,
but we have goodness eternity ahead of us to look ahead to, and
yeah.
So I truly do feel it offers comfort, and I really try to take the time and the space to share those words.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when my grandma passed years ago, and I was a adolescent teenager in those years. I remember hearing about hospice, and I didn't know who these people were coming in, but I remember like, wow, that's kind of thinking to myself, wow, that's a tough job.
Oh, it certainly can be, and I appreciate you saying that. And I can tell you honestly, I think even the days that can perhaps be the toughest or the most emotionally trying, just the blessing and it's so deeply rewarding that far outweighs, most of any challenge that we would run into.
Right.
And it's also an opportunity to share with families that the support hospice offers is ongoing, and I just wanted to share that with you too. So certainly as a chaplain, I'm there collectively with our team of social workers, our nurses, our nurse practitioners. But we also have a bereavement team available, so it's ongoing, generally like 13 months and beyond past the time that your loved one may have passed on. And it's certainly available to those who have lost a loved one on hospice services, but it's also extended out to the community. And I think it's important just to be reminded of that, that there is support. They truly are not alone as they
right.
grieve and go through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just joined us, folks, we're talking with Ted Nelson. He's chaplain at Gulfside Healthcare Services, online at gulfside.org. They do have an 800 number. It's 800-561-4883. 561-4883. And Ted Nelson, chaplain, here in studio. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. Now, Gulfside cares for folks at their home and also at Gulfside Centers for Hospice Care. Which do you do, and how are the settings different when it comes to spiritual care?
Yeah, wonderful question. So currently where I am primarily assigned, we have it's a freestanding hospice inpatient unit. So it's a 14-bed unit, and it's essentially for those who are needing probably the highest acuity level of care. So as far as providing comfort measures, it's for those who may have uncontrolled symptoms or uncontrolled pain or agitation, and perhaps they are nearing end of life. So it's an opportunity, it's a peaceful environment where that patient can come in. With that, the length of stay can be fairly short, Brandon, just because of the severity of the condition.
Right.
So it could be quite an intense dynamic, if you will, that you may have one opportunity to meet a family and their loved one, correct? But that we can still step in and be a part of that inner circle with them and offer support. And also with that, hospice offers services in the home, and I was a part of that for about 3.5 years prior to the inpatient unit. So I think it's so wonderful that hospice care is offered in the home, and a family and a caregiver can provide and care for their loved one at home.
Right.
They receive nursing visits on a regular basis. They have the entire care team available to them, including chaplains and social workers, nurse practitioners. We're essentially coming to them in the home. And then if we need to help them discern, gosh, what will the next step be, or do you need another plan B for your loved one, we can then step in and honestly help them discern that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great overall program, man. I love it. And so Gulfside, over the years, I've learned a lot about Gulfside. They do so much for the community. How do the spiritual care services expand to help those in the community as well as patients?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. it really gives you an opportunity to develop just a deep connection with the families. And oftentimes, families will come to me a little while after their loved one has passed on, and they'll say, gosh, we really want to honor our loved one by a memorial service, a celebration of life. Can you help us with that? Can you be a part of that? And it's truly an honor to do that. So as often as I can, I love to be available to help, preside with a family for a memorial service celebration of life. I also invite them that our bereavement team does typically like a holiday workshop, and it's ways of inviting them to come together that, yes, we can come to you, but there is a community that is experiencing grief and is grieving. And so please come together. We can share stories. We can offer ways to remember your loved one.
Yeah, and you have other special programs that you get to be part of as chaplain. What other special programs? What do you have? Yeah,
Brandon, I'd say one of the most meaningful that I experience amongst our staff is that many of our patients are veterans.
Yeah.
And so families come to us, and we go to them and say, we just want to honor and recognize your loved one for their service and sacrifice.
Right.
And it's truly just some of the most humbling, beautiful stories you'll hear, And I've come to have such a deep admiration and appreciation for those who have served. And so it's an opportunity. It can be intimate, or it can include friends, family, neighbors. But as a staff, we like to come together. We have materials that our volunteers have lovingly put together. So there are quilts and prayer shawls and stuffed animals. We often have a veteran's prayer that we read, and a certificate of recognition for the branch they served in.
That's awesome.
And even a baseball cap with a flag pin. And, just to offer that. Sometimes it's within the ballpark of about 15 to 30 minutes. And oftentimes the patient may be alert and oriented enough to interact. And what's been very powerful also is sometimes the patient may not necessarily be able to interact, but we can play the hymn of that particular branch. And just hearing the music, you might see a foot start to tap. And there's that recognition, and it's just a powerful experience.
Love it. Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful way to give thanks and to express our gratitude. I think it's so important.
That really is, man. Yeah, I just got to say, you got very passion. I can tell you're passionate about the job, and
very much so.
Appreciate all you do for those, especially those veterans, that served our country, and keep up the good work out there, man.
Oh, I appreciate that so very much, Brandon. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Gulfside Healthcare Services online at gulfside.org. They've got their 800 number, 561-4883. You can call direct at 800-561-4883. They have hospice care, palliative care, and home health care. That's their 3 service lines. So, Ted Nelson, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Brandon, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Hey, my pleasure. Taking a quick break. Coming back, we got attorney Jason Coble Law on the show. We're going to talk about work comp law, personal injury law, and also a big defamation case that he's got going on against a large major news network here in the United States. We'll be right back. Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
This is Warwick Dunn, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.